The Committee of Present Danger. Reality, Emergency and People. Redrawn, Extended and Abandoned. The ecological, social and political state of the world that we live in today is all but completely compromised. Unrestrained human activity, conflict, proliferation of technology and extreme climate events, combined as a blowback upon the entire living planet, seen and felt every day, addressed a million times over, the catastrophic outcomes which we can count are manifesting in a multitude of ways. I will not waste your time naming all the actors of the polycrisis. About 1,900 square kilometers of thriving habitat, farms and pastures were flooded and smashed, in a matter of just 6 hours here in Valencia. But far worse and far more sustained are 2,000-pound bombs being dropped on innocent children, women and men in Gaza, West Bank and South Lebanon. What present escalation or danger are you grappling with and how? Whatever the threats may be, one thing we can be sure of, is the gradual demise of allegiance or loyalty, to charismatic leaders, to existing forms of sovereignty and also entire aspects of what constitutes as commonly understood reality. What defines present danger is made of many elements put together. What gives meaning to each danger is based on our ability to identify and contest, but the devil is in the detail and not the entire collapsing mass. Many of us are engaged in one or another committee of present danger. Committees are communes of reform and reformation, to resist, rebuild, rehabilitate, remake, renovate, reorganize, repair, revolutionize and on and on. At the same time we are also witnessing an escalation of totalitarian norms that wish to define and capture present danger. They do so with increased censorship, propaganda, counter-propaganda, speculation, denial, outrage and a general malaise of disagreement. A semiotic electronic interpretation of every possible event, not just between leaders, experts, policymakers, media and institutions, but also common people engaged in all too frequent name-calling, that used to characterize volatile political debates, but now extends across every social milieu and arguments between countless people. This great entanglement in the colonization of our minds and bodies goes hand in hand to sustain our blasé age characterized by cynicism, consumption, technological hubris, magic thinking and frivolity, and such words that may cause only snickers. For most of us who cannot make sense of the current worldview, there is always some committee of present danger. There are thousands of such assemblies and movements dedicated to this present danger or that future calamity. Having spent a fair amount of time navigating this realm, the continuous politics of the future, it simply merits a short story to make objective sense of present danger. Highly motivated young people cast serious doubts on science and scientific process. Science denial in the 21st century. Members of the public can disagree with scientists in at least two ways. 1. People can reject well-established scientific theories. 2. They can believe fabricated media and deceptive claims about science to be true. Within such a definition, what is not expressed clearly is that science is a continuous process, open to redefinition, as the best available approximation of the truth. Thomas Kuhn. Information technology, outreach of media and viral propaganda, impacts our susceptibility to viral deception. Definitions can become political and open to revision, or better, how Prolicult defines the polarization as thousands of people involved in shadowboxing polemics. Hence, is this demise of faith really a present danger? Denial or outright rejection of science, history, events, figures or about X, Y or Z, then becomes a political weapon, based on techniques of proliferation, even more effective when backed by millions of dollars and cult figures. But overwhelming consensus is seldom achieved in reality in a peaceful manner. A large number of educated folks belonging to many different nations opt for theories, constructs and ideas that do not concur with the definitions and information that sustains the dominant scientific version of reality. Worse, authentic sources, archives and institutions have been infiltrated by counterinsurgent forces that now impose sanctions, manipulate facts about people and subjects alike, pillars or call them foundational myths of liberal democracy, like freedom of speech, freedom of association, etc., are steadily undermined by powerful interests which can impose contradictory definitions and oversimplified interpretations displayed as universal facts. A prescient example of the totalitarian schema of the global information apparatus and knowledge economy is YouTube. The cadence between YouTube, Google, Alphabet and Wikipedia, which also links back to a range of organizations including the CIA, Atlantic Council and FBI. The censorship apparatus is able to re-edit pages within Wikipedia as well as place millions of definition stickers under uploaded videos, regardless of the context, be it about war crimes, Holocaust, climate change, mass extinction, imperialism, communism, alien life, history and crimes of the CIA, FBI, etc., etc. Like politics and history, science too can have policy implications which clash with deeply held personal beliefs. Science Direct, still unable to contain conspiracy, misformation and dissent, a group made of academics and journalists based in China, demand, both their government and citizens, to systematically correct what they argue are serious anti-Chinese biases and misinformation, endemic across Wikipedia. Washington Post, 2022. Search for climate change on YouTube and what shows up above all else is the following definition. Climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. Human activities have been the main driver of climate change, primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas. Wikipedia linked the above definition negates principal components, the real drivers such as capitalism, endless extraction and industrialization, infinite economic growth, population overshoot and the human footprint. The above factors have not only altered the climate and the environment, but also effectively triggered a mass extinction and a range of irreversible ecological disasters for generations to come. The Wikipedia definition and the backing science also omits that environmentalism and climate doom has historically been an elite-driven movement, often serving the interests of capitalism by promoting resource management and conservation in ways that benefit economic growth. Jason W. Moore. Take the example of Holocaust search on YouTube and the corresponding definition placed on thousands of videos and related discourses. The Holocaust was the genocide of European Jews during World War II. Between 1941 and 1945, Nazi Germany and its collaborators systematically murdered some 6 million Jews across German-occupied Europe, around two-thirds of Europe's Jewish population. Nevertheless, way broader definitions of the word Holocaust exist with evidence. When we read books or listen to discourses by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz, Ward Churchill, David Stannard, Patrick Wolfe, Gerald Horne, Howard Zinn and Chris Hedges to name a few, the indigenous and the authors who have documented the Holocausts and genocides which occurred in North and South America for over 400 years, whereby Europeans exterminated indigenous peoples in ways and numbers much higher than the genocide of WW2. Many aspects of WW2 Holocaust have been warped and utilized by the Israeli education system to brainwash children and teenagers growing up in Israel, for decades now, as explained by Professor Elhanan recently. What equates to present danger is not the word Holocaust but how it can be weaponized to perpetuate the elimination of children, women and men in occupied Palestine. Search for discourses on deep state on YouTube to encounter yet another botched wiki definition. A conspiracy theory. Deep state is a clandestine network of members of the federal government, especially within the FBI and CIA, working in conjunction with high-level financial and industrial entities, political leaders, to exercise power alongside or within the elected United States government. Given that the term and the existence of such figures, agencies and covert projects are all decades in the making, orchestrated to sustain American imperialism. The unraveling of the deep state is way better understood with actual discourse and evidence, from young investigative voices like Aaron Good and Bryce Green, American exception. The deep state is simply a corporate duopoly orchestrated by cult figures, Chris Hedges. The ideological void of nations, especially in the West, is turbocharged by the deep state. Visit the CIA page on Wikipedia, and you will find no mention of its involvement in the movement of opioids and cocaine at a global scale, yet evidence comes up over and over again. 70 tons of opium shipped from Afghanistan 1995 to 1997, orchestrated by the Deputy Director of CIA, with Georgian and Azerbaijani mafia, directed towards markets in the Russian Federation, Turkey and Greece. That spilled over into Pakistan and India. David McBride, an Australian military lawyer, whistleblower. To extrapolate the crisis of authenticity on the part of YouTube, Google and Wikipedia, is evidence of pages and entries that have been edited or rewritten, to favor the subject, person, institution or corporation, taking out certain unfavorable aspects, thus also vetting long-standing suspicions of manipulation of information. The manipulation can also distort information about a given person or cause. On Wikipedia, the oversight includes pages dedicated to Vladimir Putin or the Vatican or Arab Spring, to name a few big instances. The Hong Kong uprising in 2019 to 2020 spilled over into Wikipedia, with hundreds of conflicting or inconsistent entries and references in Mandarin and English. Wikipedia scanner developed by Virgil Griffith Caltech was able to track hundreds of thousands of entries, often originating from anonymous sources placed within a range of institutions, big and small. These include state propaganda channels of almost every nation, major corporations, political parties and leaders, think tanks, NGOs, banks, the CIA, FBI, Atlantic Council, NATO, etc. Each one of the above sites imposing a set of present dangers and affirmations, targeting public opinion mills and geopolitical experts continuously. Search results on Google are also subject to algorithmic bias and selection, which makes it a very powerful arbiter of public information and content. Whatever you may be searching for, Google rankings or search results can be masked, so that people show no awareness of the manipulation. Search results, especially the politically volatile stuff, can shift the preferences of undecided people, be they voters, journalists or students, by a wide margin. Search engines have become key for our scientific, economic and social activities. Search engine bias, PNAS. Wikipedia has been steadily manipulated by a host of sources, albeit the editors still want us to believe that videos, links and articles should reliable, independent, published sources with a reputation for fact-checking and accuracy. The largest collection of human knowledge ever amassed is not only under attack but also backsliding on reputation for what was earlier the go-to place for students, scholars, academics, writers, journalists, activists, resistance groups, etc. We cannot trust Wikipedia's impartial information, nor the engaged armada of opinion leaders and administrators. The Committee on Present Danger, CPD, is a term used by several American anti-communist foreign policy groups, whereby the demonization of former USSR, communism and Russians had carried on for decades. Founded in 1951, revised in the mid-1970s, the early 2000s and again in 2018, CPD has influenced American foreign policy since the administration of Harry Truman. The latest iteration was expanded to include China as present danger, China, CPDC. The irony of the embedded mission within all such committees, that are out to combat the threat of totalitarian regimes with evil ideologies, the very character-defining aspects of American imperialism and capitalist ideology. Very well known is the operative outreach of the CIA, or call it organized crime at a global scale. Douglas Valentine, involved in empowering dictators, anti-communist groups, plotting assassinations, funding terror cells, fostering media, Western art, music, Hollywood, shipping and selling opium and cocaine, executing regime change and on, ever since its formation. The underlying culture of any big nation plays a major role in defining what is acceptable, and in that context Russia's internal propaganda and state policy was equally formidable for decades, till the collapse of the USSR 1991. On one hand, Soviet committees made it difficult for outsiders to interact with Soviet citizens, and on the other hand targeted millions of people across the world about the inherent evils of capitalism and imperialism. Yet the crusade of Soviet-style propaganda was junked, only to be replaced by a newer version made of elementary education, televised media, cyber-info wars, as brand nationalism that is also a backdoor to foreign disinformation efforts. John Katskiko, coordinator at the World Future Society, Russia's public campaign against the Israeli regime and the ongoing genocide in Gaza is illustrative of its contemporary propaganda efforts. Russian state-controlled media and several anonymous sources not only support Hamas and Hezbollah, but also attack Israeli and Ukrainian propaganda mills, criticize U.S. policy, while orchestrating the flow of information that eventually influences the narrative around ongoing wars and fuels speculative geopolitical discourse. The New York Times reports that the level of propaganda and disinformation is unprecedented in history, reflecting the new global bifurcation. Alice, the NYT itself is a mouthpiece of the American empire. Chris Hedges, Empire of Illusion. Russia was alleged 1,000 times over, almost like a national affirmation, yet without any credible evidence or source. The media giant is also susceptible to fake news and horrendous counter-propaganda, the recent beheaded baby story being one such example, that was initially launched by Nicole Zedek, working for Israel-based I-24 News. The allegation was rejected as false, not only by the UN and the ICJ but also a range of independent journalists including Israeli newspapers. But President Joe Biden insists that he saw the beheaded babies. How obvious or stupid that the wicked old imperial behemoth failed to notice 15,000 plus Palestinian children that have been eliminated so far by the IDF using American weapons, bombs and military technology. A special mention, after all, to the world's top committee of present danger, the UN and its Security Council, that entirely failed to prevent Israel's ongoing genocide in Gaza and West Bank. Who better than UN-appointed human rights lawyer Francesca Albanese to put out the ghastly inhuman facts for us to know? Where might the next genocide occur becomes a highly disturbing, avoidable thought, or matter of speculation again, is why perhaps Danny Haiphong is telling us about incoming WW3 every day. The specter of present danger never ceases. It evolves over time, over generations and through institutions framing public opinion continuously. It changes sides and it replaces the old villains and heroes with frequency. The same media which favors a given movement, leader, organization or nation can totally turn around to demonize or dismantle the same. We can only reconcile with such a botched mechanism, almost as a principle, the mainstream media expanse. David Graeber, orchestrated by several powerful agencies at the same time, using the same set of technologies, remains invisible as an apparatus. A given ideological totality is the objective, be it today or 50 years ago, the colonizing force, robbing our capacity to think and to participate in kratos, power in Old Greek, buy-in for ourselves, rather than being a site, or plant, of renewed genesis of meaning, conviction and the corresponding worldview. Present danger has been weaponized to gain monopoly on the very idea of the future, or the future of everything itself. Counter history of the present. Gabriel Rockhill. What better than to control the structures of thought, triggered and motivated by fear, external danger and incoming threats? Or the brighter side of things, where millions of digital serfs navigate their daily lives within a three-dimensional horizon predicated by Facebook, Soaring on computational power and profits of AI, Peter Thiel and his tech affirmations directed at Gen Z, the old white tropes of success, albeit the same technology that is used in war, empowering genocide, mass surveillance, invasion of privacy, cyber terrorism, etc. As Bill Gates, Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg aren't famous because of the similar ways in which they left school. We know their names because of what each of them did differently from everybody else. These false meta-narratives play a vital role in the terminal stage of late capitalism and shared illusions of the tech billionaires, especially within collapsing societies that line up with Francis Fukuyama's end of history as such. To be clear, Fukuyama did not simply mean an endpoint of human evolution or ideology. What he meant was the final reconciliation of the market principle and the idea of freedom, the universalization of Western liberal democracy as the final form of human government. And how long did the idea or finality last? Give or take, about 35 years. Ravaged by innumerable present dangers, liberal democracy cannot discount the experiences of the billions of people who lack economic security, a clean environment, basic shelter, stable energy, health services, and real political power. The entire pretense of protecting democracy by the left, the elites, the institutions situated in the West is not just a hoax but also equates to a common devotion to the current world order. The end of history will be a very sad time. The struggle for recognition, the willingness to risk one's life for a purely abstract goal. In the post-historical period there will be neither art nor philosophy, just the perpetual. Francis Fukuyama, 1991. In hindsight, an exceptional portion of the human population aside, for the rest of us the above predicament is bad nonsense. The valorization of democracy versus the range of real threats and disruptions, loss of life and habitat, is what makes current reality neither abstract nor philosophical. As Fukuyama wrote his highly touted epitaph to history, the rest of the world, especially Africa, Asia and Latin America, were in the midst of a spectacular collision out of the dark night, where in the old world, the post-colonial global order began to collapse, led by regional mutiny, rising economic insecurity combined with ecological overshoot of population, emissions, energy and consumption. Regardless of the portending signs, the renewed vigor to regain local power is giving way to what is now framed as the West versus the rest, viewed as danger by one side and as hope by the other. Yet far greater number of people from the above continents are in exodus every year, heading towards unknown horizons, crossing milestones that speak of ruined prospects. Councils and committees of the past, nested in the West, many people are utterly fed up with the existing system and its cascading failure, also repulsed and enraged by the preposterous wealth of the 1%. In 2020, the U.S. experienced the worst economic growth since World War II, but the billionaire class quadrupled its wealth, while disease, death, lockdown and chaos ravaged the entire world. Where was the committee of present danger? Never mind. Each passing crisis and disruption requires ever more complex modes of explanation and understanding, and that can tire us down or dwindle down to nothingness. Yet, ignorance and distorted definitions have been utilized as a resource, enabling facts and certainty to be deflected, obscured or worse cancelled altogether, for now concealed, making it unintelligible. But a common reality fraught with as many present dangers, that are redrawn, extended or simply abandoned. Written by Pervert. Read, share, subscribe to the counterintuitive audiopervert.substack.com.